News brought to you by Sleep Right, the mattress professionals. Sleep like a king, wake up like a prince.
Prime Minister Stewart promises to examine the laws governing appointments in the public service. The finance minister says Barbadians owe millions of dollars in taxes to government. And in sports, Carlton and St. Catherine in the finals of the Sagicor Super Cup.
Credible, balanced, committed. This is the CBC Evening News.
A very good evening to you. I'm Sophia Cambridge with the Sunday, August 21st edition of the CBC Evening News. In our top story tonight, public servants who've been disadvantaged by the laws governing appointments will have their concerns addressed by government. The assurance has come from Prime Minister Frundle Stewart, who says the issue has affected morale within the system. Prime Minister Stewart made the disclosure at the 56th Annual General Conference of the Democratic Labour Party. Sean Farrell has more.
Prime Minister Stewart told a capacity crowd at the George Street Auditorium many government employees have been complaining about the provisions in the Public Service Act of 2007 and the Civil Establishment Qualification Order 2001, both passed under the last administration. Among the concerns is that they place too heavy an emphasis on paper qualifications.
So far as the post of Permanent Secretary is concerned, appointment to that post depends on the possession of a university degree. Now, on this requirement, many of the highly intelligent, efficient, and creative permanent secretaries of the past who did not have degrees would not be able to secure appointments to that post today.
The Prime Minister says government will review the laws and make changes if necessary.
I have requested, therefore, that so far as the Act is concerned, permanent secretaries, the unions, and other interested parties submit not later than September 2011 a list of the areas that are thought to be impeding the smooth functioning of the public service by undermining morale and working injustice. Recommendations will be studied, and where necessary, amendments to the Act will be done with expedition.
Mr. Stewart also commented on the Clico affair in his 45-minute address. He says, like many Barbadians, he wants to see the matter resolved. Noting that he has been a policyholder since 1985, he says he's awaiting the court's position on the situation. Mr. Stewart adds that government is making preparations in the event the decision is not favorable to policyholders.
I have been quietly, along with the Minister of Finance, pursuing other options that I am assured will minimize the dislocation that this very knotty problem has the potential to cause.
On the issue of candidate selection for the next general elections, constitutionally due by the first quarter of 2013, Prime Minister Stewart says there is always an element of disgruntlement when the process takes place. He insists, however, that the representatives have been chosen by a transparent process that has worked well over the years. Sean Farrell, CBC News.
Barbadians still owe hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes to government. Minister of Finance Chris Sinclair says while the majority of Barbadians pay their dues, there is still a high rate of non-compliance. He says while people hate paying taxes, if Barbadians are to continue enjoying the kinds of lives they have, government needs to collect revenue.
We all want our children to go to university for free and to secondary school, and we want to turn up at the QAH if we are ill, God forbid, and get service, however good or not so good to some people's standards it is. And we want to have other amenities in the country. Well, those things have to be paid for, and they're paid for through taxes and other revenues which the country earns.
Minister Sinclair was speaking at the 106th anniversary service of the Customs and Excise Department at the Church of the Nazarene, Conemarock this morning. Acting Controller of Customs, Frank Holder, says management of the department is working to improve its customer service and will be implementing several measures to ensure that this is done.
The demand for rapid movement of goods, combined with the complex regulatory requirements, call for more audit-based controls, and eventually you'll see more and more movement away from the border and the transactions being controlled by audit rather than examinations at the border.
Well, there's a need for more basic and advanced skills programs across the island. That's the view of Minister of Social Care, Constituency Empowerment and Community Development, Steve Blackett. He was speaking at the Western Light Church of the Nazarene Craft and Skills Program graduation. Mr. Blackett says applied skills are practical and relevant in today's economy. He adds it can also form the basis for micro-enterprise if carefully managed. He's also commended Western Light for the work that they're doing, stressing the need for more programs being offered by non-governmental organizations in order to assist government.
Now, the promotion of community change in Barbados requires input from a broad range of persons and organizations. And as you know, we are caught up in the throes of a severe economic tsunami, and the intervention with which you have engineered here at Western Light, the neighborhood empowerment, should be embraced.
Minister Blackett says programs like the Western Light can address some of the gaps in Barbados's education program.
Your evening classes, which have been in existence for the last 10 years, I understand, will not only provide an avenue for members to equip themselves with skills to earn a decent living, but it will also assist them in the process of lifelong learning. I hope that you will be able to continue them and expand where possible.
Police news now. A 20-year-old St. Michael youth is to appear in court tomorrow on a charge of murder. He's Carlton Junior Hall of 2nd Avenue, Chapman Lane in St. Michael. Detectives attached to the Northern Division of the CID arrested and charged Hall last evening for the murder of Adrian Wilkinson of Seeley Hall, St. Philip. Wilkinson was shot and died on the spot at Spitestown, St. Peter last Sunday, August 14th, 2011. Traffic slowed to a halt this morning at Valley Road in St. George following an accident between a minibus and a car around 10 minutes to 11. Lawmen were quickly on the scene as passengers complained of various bruises and pain. At least one passenger in the minibus reportedly suffered a broken limb. Lawmen worked swiftly to ensure that the important roadway was passable shortly afterwards, whilst the injured were ferried to hospital. The Barbados Christian Council has pledged its commitment to peace in Barbados. Chairman of the Council, Monsignor Vincent Harcourt Blackett, made the comments at the March for Peace yesterday in Heroes Square. Monsignor Vincent says he believes the march is the first step towards a peace movement and that the Council will be meeting shortly to discuss the issue.
I hope that sometime soon we will come back together when you have cleared your minds and when you have thought through the whole thing properly, and to see how we could have established some kind of peace movement here in Barbados.
Barbados is to have its first major book fair next year. We'll have that story and more just ahead on the evening news. Come next year, Barbados will have its first major book fair for local authors. Education Minister Ronald Jones made the announcement during a book launch for authors Chamberlain and Anoush Hope. The father and daughter team have published 2 books, Love and Grief During the War and Riots and Yesterday Was a Woman. Minister Jones invited both authors to participate in the fair, saying he feels they can be a positive influence on the growing number of new young writers.
We're going to do that through the Ministry of Education, possibly at the end of September or early October, once everything stays relatively constant. Impossible, but we're going to bring it off because it is our view that as an education ministry we must encourage, we must provide the facility, the exposure for writers in Barbados. And there are persons writing, but we don't in one space see all of their work. And we want to do that, to create that impetus for others to write.
Minister Jones says he's excited about the new local literature which is being produced.
A nation captures its soul itself through the writings of its people, through the eyes of the environment, and how they're able to tell their individual stories, really. Because that's what we're doing. We're telling our individual stories, and we're hoping that others reading our individual stories are somewhat encouraged, or on the other side, discouraged from following paths or tracks that might lead them to disaster. But I more speak to being encouraged to become better human beings.
Well, there'll be more academic exchanges between Canada and Barbados in the near future. Canadian High Commissioner to Barbados, Ruth Archibald, made the comments at the ceremony for the recognition of the Barbados Community College students who were awarded scholarships by the Canadian government. The scholarships give the students an opportunity to study abroad for 1 or 2 semesters. Ms. Archibald says this winter they're looking to add a new aspect to the program with the exchange of faculty.
We're very much looking forward to a long-term relationship in building a relationship between the Canadian Community College system and the Barbados Community College, whether it's with students or with faculty.
Do stay with us. The sports news is next with Shane Jones.